Marfoogle TV live in 3. All right. So if you have been under a rock, there's been a lot going on, and of course, if you haven't seen the speech by the Secretary of War, then you should watch it in its entirety, not just the clips. You don't have to read between the lines. He is straight up saying things that are just absolutely, very, very clear what is going on right now. So most of the articles that are coming out about his speech, and we'll talk about that later, essentially show, that they're talking about the DEI statements and about all of these different things that he's changing. And of course, they're weaponizing it and making it look like, it's this very, very, bigoted way of how they're running the military now, or whatever they want to call it. It is so much bigger than that. And there was explanations in there that I think everybody should hear about what's going on and understand the brevity of this. We are now heading into a war, whether it be in October of next year or this October. This could be the October surprise of this year. It's very, very big. Now, we're going to get right into this news. We're going to go over that, and we're going to show you, again, why we think that this is absolutely the time to prep, and could not be more serious on that. I hope that friends and family that are listening to finally and going to stop being skeptical and actually go get more than 3 days of food in their fridge. Trump signs executive order vowing to defend Qatar, which is, this whole thing is absolutely wild as far as Qatar, the place in Doha that was hit by Israel. Out of Dubai, President Trump has signed an executive order vowing to use all measures, including U.S. military action, to defend the energy-rich nation of Qatar, though it remains unclear of just the weight that pledge will carry. It says the next of that order, available Wednesday on the White House's website, but dated Monday, appears to be another measure by the president to assure Qataris following Israel's surprise attack on the country targeting Hamas leaders, as they await accepting a ceasefire with Israel over the war in the Strip. The order cites the two countries' close cooperation and shared interest, vowing to guarantee the security and territorial integrity of the state of Qatar against external attack. The United States, quote, shall regard any armed attack on the territory, sovereignty, or critical infrastructure of the state of Qatar as a threat to the peace and security of the United States. Now, and then in the event of such an attack, the United States shall take a lawful and appropriate measure, including diplomatic, economic, and if necessary, military, to defend the interests of the United States and the state of Qatar and restore peace and stability. I just want to point out that this strike that happened in Doha, the president and the U.S. says that they didn't know about it. I highly doubt that, and I'm almost wondering now after seeing this, was that a purposeful strike to give us a public reason to be like, yeah, we're going to sign an executive order to protect them, but really we're protecting them because something big is about to go down, and Qatar is also going to be on our side of this massive, massive war, and we're signing a formal kind of agreement where we're going to protect them without raising any kind of alarm in the Middle East. I'm just wondering, again, that was something that popped into my head today when reading this. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. All right, we'll talk about that here in a second. We're going to talk about everything. The French boarded this Russian fleet boat. They're saying that they might have a smoking gun that this was involved in the drone incursions into Denmark. There's all sorts of wacky, crazy stuff going on. The Pete Hegseth stuff, we're going to talk about that. If you did not watch it in full, I only got to watch the first half. The second half was explosive. And once I watched that full interview, the speech, absolutely, there is a massive war coming. And if you don't see that, then you are blind. We will come back in just a second, right after this. Nothing in this show should be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. The views of the callers can differ considerably and do not necessarily reflect my opinion, Dex's opinion, or anyone else who works with the show. You should always do your own research and consult with professionals. The internet is full of fake news, so please take everything with a grain of salt. If you have not already, it helps us out if you end up going through any of our affiliates, and it helps you out if you end up protecting yourself against cybercrime. NordVPN is one of the best and one of the easiest to use. If you do not have a virtual private network, it protects your IP address, which is your online identity, which actually connects to your real address and everything else. It also connects to you. If you know anything about how they are data logging and basically getting your profiles down, you can prevent that by having a VPN. Nord is, again, one of the easiest. Download it. It's like an on switch and off switch. All you have to do. Go to marfooglenews.com/VPN. Not only will you get a giant discount on this, but you will also be helping us. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate everyone that goes through any of our affiliates. Can't say thank you enough. I just wish that we could be peaceful, but we know the track record of people. All right, what is going on, guys? It is Adam, a.k.a. Marf, and this is Marfoogle TV. We've got really insane stuff going on, especially as we were close to pretty much every single war popping off at the same time. We're going to talk about the Chinese ferries that, of course, are now, they're officially saying that they are using these for some sort of invasion, that they're prepping them. Of course, China's east coast is loaded up with ships and new bases that they've made out of nowhere, and we'll talk about that situation as well. Highly sensitive Pete Hegseth leak explodes inside of Pentagon as he launches a dystopian lie detector test. It says Pete Hegseth has been hit with highly sensitive leak at the Pentagon just as he attempts to launch a crackdown on whistleblowers. The Secretary of War, whose department was plagued by backstabbing, now finds a dystopian plan to crack down on leaking using lie detector tests has also found a way into the press. Now, is this to scare the crap out of any of these generals? By the way, no one publicly reported this. And I was actually hoping when I saw this, I was hoping, gosh, I was thinking, did I say something that could get us in trouble? And I don't think so. But Fugel family military members told us that a few of these generals, these are people that know these, were pissed off at the meeting on Tuesday. And remember, I said that they were really, really mad and that they were fuming because these guys were essentially leaning on the other side, told them about this meeting with the generals like 3 days before it was going to be anything public. And if you remember, they were going to record the speech and possibly air it later. That at least was in the response. I believe that speech was meant to go out, and it was more than that. It was a closed door meeting on top of that. And again, that's what we heard from Fugel family military members that are active duty and had their superiors absolutely fuming because the press got a hold of this so quickly. Once the memo went out, right away they knew. And I said this. I said that we just happened to talk to some Fugel family members that said, hey, these generals were generals from the last 4 years. They basically immediately called Washington Post and all of these different places and through anonymity kind of got it out there, right? Well, that wasn't supposed to happen, at least not Friday or Thursday or whenever the heck it came out, or 4 or 5 days ago. And now they're doing these lie detector tests to do this crackdown on leaking because obviously they have a problem with leaking. And it's just funny timing for this to happen right after this massive thing, which for 3 days I was telling you, this wasn't supposed to be out. No one else reported that. You can Google, go ask X. I don't think anyone else reported that this wasn't supposed to be out, that this was I believe, a leak. So anyways, that's just my opinion. And that's the thing. So the Secretary of War is, of course, cracking down with these lie detector tests. According to the internal documents obtained by the Washington Post, Hegseth is forcing officials, including top generals. I wonder where the Washington Post is getting this from, huh? Including top generals to submit random polygraph tests and sign sweeping non-disclosure agreements or potentially face dismissal. Isn't that funny? 3 or 4 days ago, I was telling you that these generals were going straight to the Washington Post, and now the Washington Post is saying that they're finding out directly from generals, top generals, that they now have to take lie detector tests. Now, do all of them have to take lie detector tests, or does this one that freaking contacted the damn Washington Post have to take the lie detector test? Do you see what I mean? Go back to that show. Go back to the show where this story broke. You'll see exactly. I even said the Washington Post. So it's just crazy because the info was good and it was too good. So, this change would mean an even deeper lockbox of information controls as Hegseth attempts to silence and root out internal critics. They're making it sound like they're banning any critics. No, they're banning trying to leak, right? These aren't critics. This is leaking sensitive information to the freaking media. That's traitorous, okay? There's a difference between, this and silence whistleblowers, as if whistleblowers are, they're putting it like a whistleblower, like, hey, they're saving us, right? Civilian employees, contract workers, and military personnel inside the Pentagon headquarters will be subjected to the extraordinary measures impacting thousands of personnel. Now, this may be kind of put out there like, hey, you might get a lie detector test to scare the crap out of these employees so they don't call Washington Post or the New York Times or, call these people the second they get a memo. Because obviously, they got to do something if this is the case. Now, especially right ahead of wartime when they're going to be sending out much stronger memos coming up soon here. Like, hey, we need to prepare for war in the next 2 months or in the six months or next week. They don't want that leaking out because people will panic. People will lose their... So this is big. Now, after watching that full interview, it is absolutely nuts. So let's bring my co-host/internet brother, Dex James. What is going on and how are you doing today?
Well, hello, Adam, and hello, Fuggle fam. I'm doing just fine. Lie detector tests have been used throughout the federal government quite often, including in the DoD, especially when it comes to security clearances and things like that. But look, I think you're spot on. This is a sign. Even if this is new, it's a sign that what is coming is so sensitive that they need to put a clamp down, whether it is through fear of you might get caught if you're a leaker, or just finding the leakers and get them out of the way, because the sensitivity is going to go up tenfold if we're going into wartime. Loose lips sink ships.
Now, if you have not seen the full interview, I keep calling it an interview, the full speech, he is saying the time is now. He compares it. He goes directly, this is something we had to do. As far as all these cuts, they're pointing out the big ones like, oh, it's all this DEI stuff. They're cutting all that out. But it's much more than that. He explained it in a great way. And I think that if you watch that full speech, even if you don't like him and if you don't like the changes he's made, you'll kind of understand why. He says it in an example. He goes, this is, do unto your unit as you would want your unit doing unto your son or daughter, right? Would you want your son on the front line and then have some 250-pound, 19-year-old guy right behind him that can't breathe? He's 50 feet away. He can't even have the breath to lift him back past the front line. Now, he didn't say that, I'm paraphrasing, but he's saying, would you want that guy being right next to your kid in the military? He says that it basically look at this like I would want this to be the military that I would be, feel safe about having my kid serve if he wanted to serve. That I wouldn't be afraid of putting if my kid enrolled or enlisted. And if you think about it, that's a general psychological thing too. If parents and other people or everybody around them is saying, don't join, the military's horrible, the military's horrible. Shoot, our young people do not like the military in general. They don't, and most of them are freaking 5 feet away from a plug-in because they're cell phone addicted, right? So you've got a lot of out-of-shape people, especially in America. We know the numbers are bad here as far as how many people are out of weight or out of shape. Well, that shouldn't be the case if you are in the Marines. My wife said, I thought that they did a lot of physical stuff like all the time. And I said, yeah, the most of the frontline guys do, but when you start going back, no. He said that this isn't a place for fat generals or fat this. There's a reason for this. There's a reason why they're cutting out all of the fluff. He says it point blank. He's saying we have to cut out all the distraction. He used the word urgent more than I've ever seen. Every other sentence was, this is urgent. This is life or death. Time is now. He's saying that very soon, coming now, coming right around the corner. He uses every which way that you could tell that he's saying it. It's not even between the lines. He's straight up saying it. And then he goes back and compares it to World War II. He goes, we did this. The comparison with how right before World War II, the people that were running it were open door policy. Come and see me. He's saying everybody's got get on the same line. Not only changing the culture of it, but taking out all the distractions, anything political, anything this side or that side, that they have to focus on being lethal, and that is it. Focusing on being lethal. some might take this like, oh, they're just trying to scare the other team, right? They're just trying to scare China or do this to be super, super, warrior ethos, this and that. All of the media has basically trashed this and said it's because of this or that, and it's just a cultural thing to get back. I've seen so many different ways of putting this where they're not addressing that this is literally what they would do right before a war. He is cutting the fat out of the military completely. And they think it's all ego. I guarantee there's some ego there. In his speech, he literally mentions, like, I think somebody wrote a book on this, being facetious, that he's the one who wrote The War on the Warrior. But there's ego there. He's a freaking ex-Fox anchor. But he's also ex-military, and he was in a different military than what is today. When he got into the Department of Secretary of Defense, he saw that it has completely changed. We've covered most of the changes they've made, and it's pretty crazy. If you walk around active base and see a 6'7" guy, like the video that aired at that base, the guy walking down the street in a dress, that is something that's different. That is different than when he served. The don't tell kind of policy, So this whole thing is absolutely a massive warning to people that they need to wake up. Whether you agree with his cultural changes, you have to understand the way he's putting it is pretty simple. We are going to war. Screw all these other distractions, worrying about if this person got that person. He's saying that the promotions should be colorblind, that people should be raised up based on their performance, their tests, their physical capabilities, and not anything else, right? Not because they check the box that says they're this. And I agree with that. And honestly, if my kids get drafted, I hope that they have somebody that's lean, mean, 180 and ready to run 6 miles and put them over, his shoulder and take my kid to the medic instead of some kid that's out of breath that gets him 4 feet and gets, shot. What would you want? If your kid gets drafted, do you want some slob behind him? Probably not. And that's the thing. You can be a slob, but you probably shouldn't be somebody's life and death experience is dependent on. So that's just my opinion. Again, this after watching that, it's no surprise to me. I've been telling and warning people for years, and people, because of the amount of years I've been warning, this is something that was telegraphed 10 years ago, and now it's here, and people are still in the dark about this. This is not a surprise to us. Many of you guys agree. There are some detractors and people that are completely skeptical and even hate me and just like hate watching. If you are hate watching, I hope the back of this goes in as a seed and you get more than three days of food and water in your house, because right now is the time. We gave you so much advanced timing on this to take your time to get the food and stuff. Well, there's no panic buying to do just a little bit, even $5 a week. Because if you look back 3, 4, 5 years ago, if you were stocking up on this stuff and you were rotating it out, you wouldn't have to break the bank. You wouldn't have to buy pallets of food at last minute because you've been doing it this whole time. But right now is crucial. I mean, it's very clear. Dex, do you want to? And then I didn't get to see the president's part on that. Everybody says he was a little bit tired, but can you point out the couple things he said that actually went along exactly with what we've been talking about here in the United States?
Well, he reiterated the protecting the Constitution and protecting America from threats, and he kept referring to domestic. And pointed out that a couple of times, that how important that portion would be.
And so domestic invasion.
Yeah, invasion. So, and he's obviously referring to, and I think he may have said like the invasion of people that are not in uniforms. And referring to the fact that we have been invaded, and there's probably something coming from that, not just a bunch of people looking for a better life, but there's probably,
and it points out they're not in uniforms, like they're military members that are not in uniforms. Is that how you take it?
Oh yeah.
So it's kind of like with his, it's a little bit more read between the lines, but saying that there are individuals in a domestic invasion of individuals not wearing uniform. Those are soldiers not wearing uniform. Not saying that he's not doing this super tricky way of saying immigrants. He's saying military members coming into our damn country. He saw all of this land that was bought, and then it's really gets scary because you think about all the land that was purchased right next to our bases, and you overlap. You remember in school when we had those projectors where you had the clear piece of plastic the teacher would write on. You take one of those and you do a map of all of the property purchased, and you overlay it over the map of U.S. bases, and it is absolutely identical. It's like boom, right across the street, boom, right across the street, boom, right across the street. Then you look at our bases on the West Coast. Edwards Air Force Base, I believe it is preparing for a Pearl Harbor-like attack, and we'll get to this story here in a minute. Again, all of this is... It's added up for years. We've warned people. We've told you. We've put one and one together, and these aren't stretching like... this isn't stretching something far away and then going, and if you -3 and add 11, it's 20. Now you got your answer. Look at that. This is straight up connected, movements of military. This is obvious stuff. Obvious. And then Russia accused of, and we'll get into the China part of this too. Russia accused of sabotaging last power line into Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. The timing of that. And then on top of the Chernobyl stuff. Dex, do you want to go into the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant and everything that's going on with that?
Yeah, certainly. So just like we just reported on our short about Chernobyl having a potential problem, well, Zaporizhzhia is now in running on a diesel generator, and it's been doing so for many days now because they can't get the power back up, and Russia's blaming Ukraine, saying Ukraine is bombing and shelling the area. Well, the evidence has come in. They've looked at all the photographs from satellites and other images, and they can find no evidence that there's actually any shelling going on. So they're saying that Russia potentially is accused of deliberately sabotaging the last remaining power line after the imagery has proven that no damage has been shown. So the outside power normally used to cooling has now been down for a record of 8 days, forcing the operators of the plant, which are Russian operators, because it's in the occupied Ukraine territory, to rely on the backup diesel generators to avoid a meltdown of its 6 reactor cores.
Remember to say supposed in the same way that when we look both ways, when we look at it and say that Russia could be jamming the signals and say, hey, show us proof that our incursions are happening. Well, they could also be jamming the radar. The same thing where they supposedly show us proof that, oh, look, we're not shelling in the area. They could doctor. It's the U.S. government and the U.S. military working together in an area where you're only going to have certain people able to even get information out. Right. So you could show a satellite image or a doctored thing and say, look, see, nobody's there. But it could be, because it could be a Fantastic Freddy too.
The photography was commissioned by Greenpeace, so it's not from Ukraine. It was examined by experts at McKinsey Intelligence in an effort to assess the damage at the Zaporizhzhia plant.
I don't know about McKinsey.
Again, it's Western. So McKinsey Intelligence concluded in a short report that there is, quote, no evidence of any crater, either fresh or historic, around the damaged pylon, and that it's still standing and therefore should be relatively simple task to repair.
Yeah, and the reason I say I don't know about McKinsey is so if you deep dive on any of these things, when you say, oh, well, we have this, and this, and of course, today's saying is, well, what's your source? Oh, my source says this and your source says that. But I mean, it really is something where you have to look at the sources of something, like, is McKinsey bankrolled by this person or this company or that? And then this company has a direct financial connection with this or will profit if this happens. That's, I don't know anything about McKinsey or any of the other quadrants listed there. But you have to ask the questions right now, because if we do get in a war, we want to be damn sure that something is going down. And if not, that's a very scary thing that could be happening right now. Either way, it's moving forward. All right, and then for 1 second, Marfoogle News going live in 3, 2. Here, I just wanted to mute that real quick. I'm trying to pull up the chat here so I can see you guys. Thank you so much, everybody that's here. There we go. Okay.
And while you're doing that, Adam, just a quick side note, nothing to share on this, but 2 planes apparently at LaGuardia clipped the wings in the taxi area as they were taxiing, and one of the wings broke off, and there's potentially even an injury. But FAA hasn't reported anything, and Delta hasn't reported anything yet. But as the government is shut down, it just makes you wonder, like, what what other cuts are happening that are going to cause other catastrophes. But this could just be coincidental.
Yeah, the other effects of not enough staff or not enough people. And then Stephen McMahon, thank you for being here. M. St. G, Jennifer Chamberlain, K. Parker Fraser, nice to see you guys. Thank you so much. Olga Turan, thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting. Julie Pilkerton, thank you for hitting 22 months. Says, love and peace to my fam, Marf and Dex, etc. Hey, thank you so much. And again, thank you guys for supporting Independent. All right, and then before we move on, make sure to go check out EMP Shield. This is how you would protect your car if we get EMP'd by any of our adversaries, China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, or any of the many others that probably have a super EMP weapon. Then you would want to have one of these on your vehicle. That means that it will ground the signal in less than 500 trillionths of a second before it's able to fry your car, allow you to get home to your family and get back out or bug in, right? So, and this also has a device. They have a device for everything. Cars, trucks, motorcycles, boats, generators, solar and gas. Again, with solar, you've got the energy company that does it and Bug Out XP that both have their own, of course, EMP shield made for it. Same company, same technology is being utilized by DHS, DOD, FBI, Air Force, and many other branches and many other things that, again, they're not talking about yet. So make sure to go check that out, marfooglenews.com/EMP. Make sure to use the code MARF. Again, that will get you $50 off per discount or per device. And that discount, of course, stacks on top of any of their sales. This will also protect you against a CME, coronal mass ejection from the sun. So either way, you are protected. And if once you go over and look at the devices, they're incredibly reasonable. And the home version, you can wire that into your home. It will actually protect all of your home, or at least within 250 linear feet, size of most homes, everything that's plugged in. So if you think about how much an expensive, big gauge, protected ground or surge protector costs, this is the cost of about 4 of those and protects your entire home, and you don't have to have any of those, because your entire house is the surge protector. Go to marfooglenews.com/EMP and make sure to use the code MARF. All right, and then let's go into the next piece, which is mystery drone sightings reported over critical infrastructure in northern Germany. Do you guys see a pattern here? You now have Poland, Estonia, you have Poland, Estonia, Denmark, Copenhagen. I'm missing one. I feel like it's Latvia.
Lithuania.
Romania. Now Germany. It's getting hard to keep track. This is a big list. This is on top of today's news, of course, of the Shadow Fleet tanker being pulled over by French troops, and essentially them saying that it might be the key connector to the incursions into Denmark, proving that all of these incursions are happening and that it's dangerous and that Russia is absolutely overstepping the line, that they're flying military gear into NATO country and needing a response from NATO. Now they're saying that there's mystery drone sightings reported over critical infrastructure. Now, some are saying that this smells of a Fantastic Freddy, like all of these unprovable things, but every country is saying it. Now you're hyping up every one of those countries, all of their civilians, and those civilians are going to feel unsafe. Their local medias are covering it. If you're in Europe, let me know. That's what people are saying there, that your local media is essentially telling you that they're flying over you and that people are freaked out by this. Let me know if that's true in the comments down below. Because they always like to overhype and fear-based marketing and their ratings. They love it when something scary happens. But on this end, this is more scary because this is straight up like governments, right? This is NATO that wants a war, in our opinion, and this is over Germany now. Germany, Latvia, Romania, Poland, Copenhagen, the Denmark situation. It's one after another. And we said this after the last two. It was like, it's going to be more and more. You're going to see almost every country have this. And now it's happening. German authorities are investigating claims that unidentified drones may have spied on critical infrastructure in the northern state of Schleswig-Holstein. What I said about a week ago was that if they were going to invade or do something like this, if this is them and they have drones over these areas, that especially over the airports, that they would be looking at all the civilian airports, because those civilian airports would actually be used by the military after the military airports and airfields were taken out. So this is eerily, looking like if this is them, they might be looking at a first strike. Think about it. They're surveilling and looking at what the layouts are of these different places. These are all, places that they would be hitting within the first 48 to 72 hours of the war. So that is very unsettling. Multiple drones spotted on September 25th over a power plant infrastructure in the capital of Kiel, as well as near a university hospital and a shipyard in a port city. Notice they're saying hospitals, university, shipyard, port, and a power plant. If this is true, they are straight up going over the infrastructure, or at least that's the picture they want to paint. This is really, really concerning. It's getting worse every day. Most people in the prepper community are already seeing this. They already know. But there's so many friends and family members that are probably in the dark about this, and that is terrifying. Especially when I know you're thinking of somebody in your head right now that is so unbelievably unprepared. What are they going to do when this happens? It's going to be horrendous. They're going to be desperate. They're going to want your stuff. I'm telling you. And then Dex, talk about the fuel leak, blows cover for alleged Russian submarine Novorossiysk off of Gibraltar.
Well, yeah, just in the last few days, a Telegram channel that does a lot of Russian intelligence sources had reported that the Black Sea Fleet submarine had run into, quote, serious technical problems while on a mission off Gibraltar in the Mediterranean. The Novorossiysk submarine was at risk of exploding, it said. And according to online sleuths, later surfaced, giving away its location. But the question remains, what was it even doing there, right, in the Mediterranean? So, obviously, we would think that Russian subs are going to be anywhere and could pop up at any time, just like U.S. subs do. But the news of the short-range Russian stealth hunter circling the Strait of Gibraltar first came to public attention a few days ago. Based on the channels, the Telegram channels, and others from the anti-Kremlin open and source intelligence type of people that are looking at that information, said the 74-meter long Kilo class Novorossiysk currently is on combat duty in the Mediterranean and had a technical failure, and the fuel was leaking into the bilge at the bottom of the vessel's hull. Submarine has neither the spare parts nor the qualified specialist on board to fix the malfunction. And it warned that it had this was a new potential posing an explosion hazard. So if all this is true, and this is just what they're stating, but apparently it did surface in that area. So now it's given away its location. So that kind of adds some credence to the story. It sounds like they're in a bit of a pickle here with this sub.
Yep, and it's just one thing after another, and we don't know what actually happened underwater or what happened to make it surface. And then China simulates attacks on the Royal Navy warship. So they've already been testing on exact replicas of our ships in the desert. If you don't know about that, go ahead and take a look at their videos on that, actually showing them targeting exact replicas of almost every USS this or that. And now you've got China simulates an attack on the Royal Navy warship, which they're going to be in our neck of the wood, or I'm sorry, in the royal neck of the woods too. I'm sure they're going to be teaming up with Russia. Chinese fighter jets simulated an attack on one of Royal's Navy vessels as it sailed through the Taiwan Strait this month. HMS Richmond, a ship in the UK's carrier strike group, passed through the strait alongside a U.S. distressor USS Higgins on September 12th. At the time, China's Eastern Theater Command accused the ships of troublemaking and provocation and said it dispatched naval and air units to follow the vessels. It has emerged that Chinese fighter jets simulated constructive kills against the vessels, referring to maneuvers that mimic a missile launch without the actual fire. So they were lining up, circling, going, pow. Maybe they even did this where they used their hand and went, pew. I don't know. But that's what they're saying. I don't, and it says that they follow the path they would go on if they were launching the attack. And I'm guessing that that is the only evidence that they have that they were doing it. I don't think that China even said anything about it. They gain height, then pulled away at a turn on 50 degrees. It's an info war operation. They want us to know they're targeting us. We were expecting a reaction, but not of a violent nature. We were confident that they wouldn't really fire a missile. Maybe that confidence is running out. And then, let's see here. Then we have USS establishes a new Reaper drone unit 250 miles from China. Dex, 250 miles is pretty close.
Well, hang on one second. What if not only were they practicing, but what if they were trying to draw fire from the Royal Navy ship? Like there had to be a point where they were like, hey, look, they're lining up to fire upon us and we don't know. We're just suspect that they won't. But is that the right move for that ship to make, or should that ship take that threat as legit? And if it did take it as legit, would it have fired upon it to protect itself? And was China trying to draw that fire out of the Royal ship? That's what I would be wondering there.
Yeah, because China wants to be the good guy, but China wants to be the one that says these guys are the aggressor. They care about how the rest of the world looks at them because they're trying to be the next USA. They publicly and forward-facingly always want to be the good guy. We want peace. We're doing everything we can. We're climate neutral. We're this. We're that. But really, they are strategizing on how to take that number one spot, and they realize they had to play the long game, and they are doing it. Yeah, I didn't
exactly.
That's a great point, Dex. I can't believe I didn't even think about that.
And maybe it also shows China. Well, look, the West is not, doesn't have the cojones enough to actually defend itself. It's just going to let us come right in, and we'll actually be able to fire a missile if we wanted to, because they're going to think we won't. They're
like Klingons. They only respect the art of war, right? Okay, and then this Reaper drone unit, 250 miles from China. What the hell's up with this?
Yeah, so the U.S. Air Force is putting a permanent drone presence on the Korean Peninsula, reviving a World War II era squadron to bolster the security, simmering military tensions in the region. So we just reported that they put the Patriot systems in South Korea. I think that was last night we were talking about it, and obviously to target China and North Korea. Now we're putting in the drones. We're putting in a whole Reaper drone unit. The 431st Expeditionary Reconnaissance Squadron was activated on Monday at the Kusan Air Base on South Korea's west coast, which is labeled there on the map. You want to see where exactly it is. It's just south of the capital of Seoul, and it's on the coast closer to China there. So another move towards strengthening the U.S. military's air capabilities on the peninsula after it's repositioned F-16 fighter jets closer to North Korea. That was many months ago when we talked about that. And then, as we just mentioned last night, the placement of the missile systems.
And remember, along Nantong, Shanghai, along this ridge is where they just put like 5 or 6 new bases. So this is like across the street. They're like, hey, well, across the strait. Actually, that's the LOC, but you get my meaning. They're right here, and all of these new bases that are all loaded up with boats and ships and all sorts of other APC, personnel carrying ships are right here. So very, very telling. Not to mention, earlier I did forget to mention, if you need any more signs that stuff is going on, all of the World War II, and this is what reminded me of it, World War II era squadron is revived as a Reaper drone unit, right? So now they're drones. Back in World War II, this was used for a squadron. So they are essentially utilizing this World War II era place for this new era. That reminds me of the islands that have not been used. They were totally covered over. They're not used by anything else. They are military islands that were essentially used for airfields and all of this that were grown over. There was vegetation. You could not land a plane on it before about a year and a half ago. If you landed a plane on it, you would be hitting trees and bushes that overgrew the actual runways. They cleared all of that. They have now revamped those islands and they are fully turning them back into bases. These are World War II era relic islands, and they are completely revamping them and getting them battle ready. They're cleaning them up. What do you think that tells you? I mean, it's so absolutely clear that this is all about to pop off. Before we move on, make sure to go check out Jace Medical. This is our recommendation. If you don't have antibiotics on hand, then you can just think about the million situations, including storms or fires or earthquakes or anything where you couldn't get, like Hurricane Katrina, where people couldn't go to the hospital. There was nobody there to go get these kind of things. If there was any kind of transportation issue or roads are down or power's out, if you don't have antibiotics, some simple thing like a cut on your toe could frickin' take you out. That's why this is a really, really great service. It's a discreet kit shipped right to your door that you can also even add on things like albuterol and other things, because you're talking to a board-certified doctor through a quick telehealth appointment through your cell phone, tablet, or computer. It's going to be quick, it's easy, and then you will have that backup of, again, antibiotics, all of the most commonly prescribed ones, all in one handy kit. Again, make sure to go check out Jace Daily as well. That's a service where you can get up to a year's supply of your prescription meds. And in some cases, it's actually going to be cheaper than if you went and got it through your normal provider. When you get bulk in a year of like that, many people have already told us in the Foogle fam that they actually got a cheaper price on a bulk of year of medication on their simple stuff than they did from the pharmacy. Go over to marfooglenews.com/Jace Daily. Again, go check out what medications you can actually get a year supply of. All right, and then U.S. intel warns China is modifying tank-carrying ferry fleet for potential Taiwan invasion. So we've talked about these ferries for years now. We told you when they first started doing this, we showed you a couple months ago where this centipede of ships was essentially lined up. So how these work is they have a 160-foot ramp on the front of them, and then the back of them has a normal entrance. And how they actually put a change in the laws and in the building codes for these commercial ferries, cruise ships, and other things, where they had to make it to where it could be strong enough to take tanks and have that 160-foot ramp on the front. The reason why is the first one, 160-foot bridge. I mean, it's huge. We'll show you an image of this. The 160-foot bridge comes down onto the beach, right? Landing. They have special actual posts that come out of the bottom and then raise them up. Then you have another ship with the exact same thing. The 160-foot bridge drops onto the back of that boat. And then another boat drops, and a 160-foot bridge drops onto the back of that one. They can be out 1,000 yards, 3,000 feet out into the ocean, a mile out in the ocean with these ships just doing it. Then have one ship after another carrying tanks and everything else drop off their loads, and then there's a steady stream. Like if you were putting out a fire and there's a person every 5 feet taking the bucket and passing the bucket on, right? That's the general concept. If you really think about it, they could have even got the idea of how yachts dock. I was just watching a documentary on how these billionaire yachts dock their stuff. They won't even have a dock. They actually have the middle of this is a common practice with these huge yachts, is the middle of their boat. People will walk through the middle of all of the yachts and have a little bridge between them to go from one yacht to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. And that's pretty much the theory here, is you have out in the middle of the ocean, or a half a mile out, in where all of the big ships can go. They can't go close to shore. They can unload. All of those tanks go right out onto the beach. You can have multiple of these set up. You have 10 of them. And then you have 7 ships deep out to the ocean. And then you have boats bringing all sorts of stuff. And they're just unloading and unloading and unloading. And these are ferries. So even if you had small fire hitting these things, I mean, they're ferries. Not to mention those posts that hold them up, you're not going to do much, especially with small arms fire. If you're not prepared, or if they cause chaos or show chaos right before they do this, they'll be untouchable. They'll just have a steady stream of tanks and different things that would come out first, set up artillery, start blasting, and then they would move in with their APCs and armored personnel carriers. So this is something that is really, really, really freaky because of the number that are being made. Now, it was understood that they had over 24, so about 22 or 24 of these modified ferries, but ABC Report cites that China is building more than 70 of these large vessels by the end of 2026. So like I said, you would have 7 line up all along the beach. These are massive ferries, and then 7 ships behind each one of those that go out. I mean, you're talking about, half a mile or a mile out into the ocean. And then you would set up at different points. It would be like a blood vein, just pushing in everything they can. They've got their East Coast loaded up with all of these personnel carrying ships. So those ships would pull up to the back of the Centipede and just unload like a vein, loading blood into the heart. The heart of the battle, right? Taiwan's ambassador to Taiwan, Douglas Hu, has described that civilian vessels or other dual-use facilities in the maritime domain are also part of China's strategy for a future assault on the self-ruled island. The classified DIA report contains some alarming information, including that the Pentagon would consider Chinese ferries fair game for attack given their military dual use. They say satellite intelligence of the ferries from earlier this year shows them being used alongside a series of new landing docks off of China's coastline. I showed you that when the satellite photos came off of OSINT, right? The landing docks are a new class of vessel that allows the ferries to deploy cargo and people onto a beach. The U.S. Department of Defense intelligence report assessed that the commercial ferries are possibly military targets in a conflict scenario with China. This means that the ferries could be targeted and sunk by U.S. forces in the event of a Taiwan crisis, even with civilian crews on board. So that's a very big distinction. Dex, you could have a full civilian ferry that normally ferries somebody from point A to point B. All of a sudden they say, hey, it's wartime. You're driving us across this strait. That's kind of freaky.
Well, yeah. And turning, these civilian boats into military and making them potentially targets. And then it becomes, how do you determine which ones are carrying civilians and which ones aren't? I mean, obviously, if they're heading into Taiwan, they're not carrying civilians, but still, yeah, they're converting everything. It's the easiest way for them to mass produce, or at least get a lot of equipment moved across a short, span of water.
If you look at this, the 160-foot bridge is in some cases as long as the actual boat. And this has to be able to take a tank, right? It has to have multiple tanks. They did the specific blueprints for these things that they have to take as much weight as having this full of tanks unloading out. That was what the guidelines they were going by. I mean, look at how long that bridge is. I forget how it expands or if it just goes straight up. But yeah, it's not going under the London Bridge anytime soon. So, or hopefully not. And then Kim Jong-un orders North Koreans to check women for unsocialist breast implants. Dex, I'll let you cover this one.
This one's crazy. Talk about just absurd stories. But look, this is what it's like living in North Korea. So Kim Jong-un's regime is said to be using undercover agents and neighborhood patrols to catch those carrying out and undergoing cosmetic procedures. And they will be faced and sent to labor camps. In one case, a doctor who was performing breast augmentation surgery was put on trial along with 2 women who underwent the illegal procedure. The medical school dropout said that, he was using silicone smuggled in from China. So long story short, if you want to get that done and it's for capitalistic purposes, as they would refer to it, meaning you want to look good and you're, paying a doctor there under the table to do it, they're going to reach out. So they're asking patrol people in neighborhoods to monitor the women. And if they see a woman that looks like she's had changes in her breast size, to report her so they can send her to the hospital to have her checked to determine if she had an illegal procedure done. Is that not insane?
Gosh, God forbid you get pregnant and they grow. You could end up in front of an anti-air gun. Yeah, that's absolutely nuts.
Or you put on a little weight. Some women carry it there,
Well, and I don't know. We don't know what's true and what's not true, or what's propaganda of North Korea. They say, it's just some of the craziest stuff comes out of North Korea. And then, Dex, talk about the French troops that boarded the Russian Shadow Fleet tanker.
Okay, catalyst. This is one of the many that could be used and to provide the proof, the evidence, the smoking gun, whatever you want to call it, to have NATO perform a response to Russia. So what they're saying is that French troops have boarded this tanker. It's one of the shadow tankers from the Shadow Fleet that runs oil out of Russia. But they're saying it potentially has been connected with the Danish drone incursions. So the president, Emmanuel Macron, has not confirmed that connection, but others are saying that connection. So it's being reported as such. So we're sort of waiting to hear, are they going to actually say, hey, it's not just, illegal sanctioned exporting of oil. This is a ship that was actually used to launch the drones that have been talked about for the last week and a half now across Denmark. And if that is the case, then they sort of have the evidence and they can point the finger directly back to Russia.
And you never know if this is accurate or a Fantastic Freddy where they've got a painted drone that flies over Denmark, and then Denmark goes, we don't know where it is, and the thing is actually French. Like it's no surprise to me that if this was the case, that it would be France is the one that found it, or Poland, right? I would think that it would be Poland or France if it was a fake event that they're trying to get some sort of smoking gun to go after and go into war with Russia. But it was French troops that ended up finding this out. And there's not exact proof being shown yet, but where did this rumor come from that this is the connection to the Denmark incursions? Because they have not said that. That's just been said. So where is that coming from exactly, right? Their official statement is not does not contain that. So where is that coming from? Or is it just meant to plant the seed in your head? Don't know, but one thing is for sure, everything is going absolutely nuts. And finally, make sure to go check out Energy if you haven't already. This is our recommendation for a solar generator. The same generator is going to be shipping out and has won the SBR Phase 1 and Phase 2 contract for the Army. The reason why is the specifications for this to win that contract mean that it's front-loaded in the USA. It's not going to have any kind of backdoor into it from another country where they can turn it off on you. It's reinforced with steel. This thing's made to go on the back of a Humvee. Can certainly go on the back of your truck. It has these clamps. It is incredible. So go check it out, marfooglenews.com/energy. It's modular, meaning it can be changed. It's weather resistant. It's got heater for extreme cold temperatures. It is incredible. Go check it out, marfooglenews.com/energy, INERGY, code Marfoogle to get a huge savings on it. And remember, once this batch is gone, it is gone. They only have a small amount for the public. And after that's gone, if the buy button is gone when you go there tonight, then it is no longer being sold to the public. Once that buy button is gone, you'll just have to wait and see if they make another one for the public. Again, marfooglenews.com/energy, INERGY. Make sure to use the code Marfoogle. All right, Dex, thank you so much for your service tonight. I appreciate you so much.
Much love. Great job, brother.
Thank you for your service. Olga Turan, Patrick Bellamar, thank you so much for joining the fam and becoming a member and gifting out a badge to somebody else. Julie Pilkerton, thank you for being a member for 22 months. Really, really appreciate that. And then thank you, Olga Turan. It looks like you are our top supporter, and that was your 20th super ever on a live stream. So thank you so much, Olga. Again, you are top supporter tonight. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank your mods by going over to marfooglenews.com/friends. That is over there, along with a full bibliography of every single article, tweet, video, picture, document. Again, thank you to our PayPal donors of 2025, Deborah L., Denise D., Janine G., Ann E., and, of course, Carol A., Tara M. Thank you, guys. Again, thank you for every bit of support you guys give us. We are independent, so it really does help. And then, of course, friends, all of the great people over there, all of the great mods, and all of the great friends and creators on the creators list. Go check them out. All right, you guys, have a wonderful night. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Thank you so much. And we will see you tomorrow. Be safe, be prepared, and Marf out. It's now time for the shoutro. It's not an outro. It's not a shout out. It's a shoutro.
I just think we could be peaceful, but we know the track record of people. This war is the one we've chosen. I know you'll hear the sounds of bombs dropping all around them. I know that you all know it. This war is the one we've chosen. I know you'll hear the sounds of bombs dropping all around them. I know that you